The root issue is never that you are the worst or you are a failure or you suck and everybody else has it figured out, but you've completely screwed it up and there's no hope for you. There is something to be learned. There is something to be understood in those moments.
Mental health champions, I'm so excited for today. We're bringing on someone who puts their heart and soul into what they do right here on a mental health break. And as we get started, a quick mental health tip for everyone today. As you're getting going, things may seem chaotic and stressful, super overwhelming, but if you break it down into smaller, actionable steps, you may just find your stress removed. But with that, I'm excited to bring on Jennifer. She's an absolute rock star, therapist for over 20 years, runs her own private counseling practice, and she also is going to share her story recovering from a lifetime struggle with food addiction while being an entrepreneur. So we're going to have a very great conversation on those areas. So Jennifer, welcome and thank you for joining us here on a mental health break.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited again to have you share your story because behind the scenes, we were talking and she was sharing her willingness to be real and open and help other people in similar shoes. So thank you everyone for tuning in, keeping this a top 5% global podcast. We're going to dive right into it today. And Jennifer, I always like to start these shows by asking you to share your mental health journey from wherever you feel comfortable.
So I would start about 40 years ago when my parents, God bless them, could no longer remain married and they made that decision to divorce. And I, being the oldest and having a lot of the oldest kid personality traits and taking on burdens that were never mine, believed that it was my fault. And that was a time of great sadness, great loss. And on top of all of that, believing that, I had caused it or that I didn't keep it from happening or whatever my 8-year-old brain was believing, I went inward and started soothing myself with food. Food was always there. Food could not reject me. Food was comforting. And I started putting on weight. So, putting on weight, being in a new school, being withdrawn, you can imagine that I was not making friends. And then, as we were all getting older and middle school, and kids can become real a-holes in middle school, and then the bullying starts. And I went even further inward and had all this shame, all this anger. And as the years went on, I was able to get more clarity and as to what was going on and have a better awareness of my inherent worth and value and that it was not dependent upon what I looked like or my social standing. I was, thank God, able to develop really good friend group in high school and in college. And then out of college, was working for an investment company and realized that my real calling was therapy, to become a therapist. And my own journey with food addiction was a huge part of that because I wanted to help others not have to walk the same path that I have walked. That was over 20 years ago that I went back to school and got my master's. And since then, I've found that in my own journey, it has taken so many different components to really start to get me on a healthy track. It has taken spiritual work. It has taken my own therapy. It has taken attending online recovery meetings. It has taken connecting with an eating plan that actually cuts out the foods that my body can no longer handle in moderation. So it has taken this multi-pronged approach and a lot of intentionality, a lot of hard work to get me to where I'm finally starting to get on more even footing and make some progress.
Well, again, congratulations on how far you've come. You continue to come. I see the smile on your face here. As you were getting going with this business, right? You're doing this to help other people in similar paths. What were some of the pain points you had when you were getting started? And then I know we're going to talk about how you ended up here smiling at me today, but I know building a business is not an overnight thing. So walk us through that and then as it relates to mental health.
Pain points. Oh, there are so many. Nothing like starting a business that will activate the imposter syndrome part of your emotional system. Really, I would say the first pain point was working for a health center. Believed in them. I believed in their mission, great coworkers, fantastic experiences. But toward the end of my time there, what ended up being the end of my time there, I noticed that I was getting so burned out, so just discouraged about showing up for work. And I loved what I did. So what I wasn't sure what was going on. And all of a sudden, bam, one day it comes to me. I'm supposed to leave and go full-time private practice. Well, few things are as scary as that because when you're full-time private practice, you don't have a set salary to rely upon. Your income is dependent upon clients showing up for their appointments and either paying for their appointments or insurance paying those claims. And there are many other things that can go wrong, and you don't have, again, that business to fall back on. You don't have colleagues right there to consult with. They're just down the hall there at the health center, but in private practice, that's you. And that was hard. That was scary. And so what I want to pause in telling the story and strongly recommend is that anybody who is starting a small business, make sure that you have people in your corner. Make sure that you have an accountant. Make sure that you have colleagues in the business. Well, they might be in their own businesses, but colleagues you're connected to connect with and bounce things off of and run ideas by them to make sure that you're not completely crazy. You might be a little bit crazy. There is a tinge of craziness in running your own business, but have people in your corner. Don't lone wolf it. Don't be like the fearless cowboy riding out toward the sunset. There can be this kind of toxic American ideal of doing it on your own. Don't do it on your own. You'll fall. That was a pain point, the complete just deflation in what I was doing at that health center, which then pointed me toward launching. And other pain points, I would say, trying to do too much on my own. So
I
I've
can
walked that
resonate that.
painful road. So trying to do too much on my own and getting over and over caught up in the fear of, what if this doesn't happen? What if this other thing that I'm fearing does happen? And believing those fears more than, just handling what was in front of me and doing what I could.
I love that. Fears, imposter syndrome, everyone, you're not alone. These are things a lot of people go through. But when all of these things were happening, what were some things you were doing to take care of your mental health? For me, always it's some kind of exercise or walk in the morning, right? Not having screen time immediately. What are some things that worked for you so we can give our audience a few more tools for their tool chest?
Getting back into therapy. Getting back into therapy and really starting to get a handle on my own emotional system. I was starting to work with an internal family systems therapist, and that therapy is now my go-to in my work with clients and in the raising of my children and in helping my friends and in helping colleagues here at the practice. But IFS helped me to really understand that these parts, these emotional parts inside, when they would get active, when they would make me feel out of control and a little crazy, they were trying in their own twisted little ways to help. Anxiety is trying to help by having you do all the things so that you avoid this feared outcome. Depression is trying to help by taking you out of the game because all that's too much. You can't handle it. So instead, get on the couch, get under a blanket, and stay there. Imposter syndrome is afraid of you being exposed to be the failure or, the imperfect person that you are. I mean, you're imperfect. You're not a failure. It's got a very distorted view. And so it's trying to protect you from being exposed and shamed and all of those things. So, all of these parts, when they get all jacked up, there is always a reason, always a reason. In my own journey with food addiction, when my food comforter part is like, oh, come on, eat that. You'll feel better. And it's true. I will. When I'm stuffing myself with that food, I do feel better in that moment. It numbs me out. It makes me forget what I was just thinking about. It just takes most coherent thought out of the equation, and I do feel better in that moment. It is a coping strategy.
I absolutely love
It's
that.
a
Keep going.
bad
Yes.
coping strategy, but it is effective to a point. So the food comforter is like, oh, come on. You'll feel better. You can get back on track later and deal with all that stuff then. But right now, you just need some relief. You just need to feel better. Again, best of intentions.
Thank you so much for your openness and sharing this story. Again, everyone, you are never alone. Stick around for a little longer. We're going to get her contact info, all the things you need to know about getting in touch with her. If you can give a piece of advice to anyone who is struggling with food addiction in these early stages, they have not got over that hump towards making progress, what piece of advice can you offer?
Find an IFS therapist, internal family systems therapist, and also check out Bright Line Eating because that is a neuroscience and addiction based way of handling your eating plan, of establishing an eating plan that takes out the foods that are causing the biggest issues. And it brings a lot of clarity, and there's a great deal of support there too.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love the advice of let the professional help, similar to your shoes as a therapist. I always say, even though I may know how to fix something on my car, I'm not a mechanic. I'm going to bring it to the mechanic, right? So letting the people help you because that's what they do best. Everyone, there are a lot of resources out here. We're talking on a few now. We're going to get her contact in a bit. But while we're on the piece of advice, let's shift for some more advice here, Jennifer. For anyone out there who is just struggling today, not just maybe with food addiction, with anything that may be challenging them, what's a piece of advice you can offer them to keep pushing forward?
You are not the worst, and you are not a failure. When we struggle, there is always a reason. It could be that there is a different direction to take in life. It could be that there is something that needs healing. It could be a variety of things, but the root issue is never that you are the worst or you are a failure or you suck and everybody else has it figured out, but you've completely screwed it up and there's no hope for you. There is something to be learned. There is something to be understood in those moments.
I really love that. And I know in your case, your husband's a philosophy teacher as well. So you have a lot of great thoughts being pushed in. How does his expertise in philosophy help the household with their mental health?
He brings reasoning. I tease him by saying that he doesn't have any emotions because I am very emotionally driven and he is so much more regimented and logical and yes, philosophical. Not that he, shoves it in people's faces, but he brings a perspective from that realm of academia that can just shine a light and bring a different understanding that can help in resolving.
I love that.
and that's pretty awesome. But
Yeah,
he's also compassionate and a total sweetheart, so he's not some ivory tower type dude. He's very humble.
I love it. Well, I hope he's tuning in to hear these kind words once this goes live. But talking about making a difference with him, as we make a difference with you and your company, if there's someone out there today who did want to seek your help, do you only do in person out in Ohio or do you do remote? Or please walk us through that.
We do in-person and telehealth. Telehealth, the person would have to physically be in Ohio because all of our licensures are in Ohio. We do have one clinician who's also licensed in Illinois, Denise Prince. For the most part, we're all licensed in Ohio. And I know there are some movements to expand where people can be who are being treated by a therapist, but right now we are Ohio based.
I love it.
But there are other initiatives that we're working on. There's a Heal Your Money program that I'm developing with a money coach that addresses how the emotional interferes with managing money, which so many people struggle with and may not realize it. And then I'm kind of wondering where this whole food addiction and entrepreneurship thing that has just kind of gotten kickstarted. I'm kind of curious where that's going to go. So there will be more developments on my Instagram account, also my website.
For some reason, I can see a book in your future.
Oh gosh. The part of me that hated writing papers in school is like, no.
You have a very powerful story, and your willingness to share it is why that came across my mind here. Is there anything at all we didn't touch on today that you'd like to touch on?
Uh, Compassion is key. Self-compassion, compassion for others.
I love that. And I've learned through my experiences in the mental health world and then reflecting on myself is if I don't take care of myself and be a best friend to myself, I can't possibly be a best friend to others because I wasn't showing enough compassion to myself. So I really love that message. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And it's something that I think we're in a go, go, go world, especially since the COVID, right? And we're all going fast, pressure on ourselves. We want to do a lot. We're ambitious. But again, with her great words, her great message, showing compassion to ourselves can go a long way. Please, everyone, remember you are never alone. And Jennifer is a resource to help you make sure you are never alone. Jennifer, I know you're ramping up the Instagram, the website, but where can we get in touch with you?
Either place, Instagram or the website.
And what's the best
Either way.
website?
I would say the best website would be jenniferschrappe.com.
All right, everyone. That's JenniferSchrappe.com. And what's the IG handle?
Jennifer Schrappe, LPCC.
All right, everyone. You've got it there. You've got a great new mental advocate to add to your corner. So thank you, Jennifer, again, for taking the time to join us here on a mental health break for all you do for the mental health world. I'm very excited to see you evolve as now we are connected. My name is Vincent A. Lansing, and I again want to thank everyone for keeping the show a top 5% global podcast because it helps my guest and I make a big difference around the world. You are never alone. Today is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production.com. And with that, we are signing off today from Ohio down to me here in Florida. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.